amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. On the night of November 1st, 2007, in the university town of Perugia, Italy, a young British student named Meredith Kircher was brutally murdered in the cottage that she shared with other students. What should have been an ordinary night in a shared duplex quickly became one of the most sensationalized criminal cases of the modern era, one fueled by media frenzy, cultural misunderstanding, and a justice system willing to embrace speculation over evidence. Meredith had been living with 3 other young women, all studying abroad or attending university in Italy. One of those roommates was a 20-year-old American student from Seattle, Amanda Knox, who had come to Italy to study, to experience independence, and to immerse herself in a new culture. She was young, curious, and newly in love with her Italian boyfriend, Raffaele Solicito. In the days following the murder, Italian authorities zeroed in on Amanda and Raffaele. What followed was a case built not on physical evidence tying them to the crime, but on behavior analysis, mistranslations, and a series of coerced statements. The investigation expanded to include a rotating cast of suspects, shifting narratives, and theories that grew increasingly lurid and implausible. At the center of it all was the prosecutor, Giuliano Mignini, whose case relied on what many would later describe as wild, fantastical theories, rituals, sexual deviance, and motives unsupported by facts. These theories weren't just presented in court. They were fed to a global media machine eager for a scandalous story, and Amanda Knox became its most infamous character. Amanda would spend nearly 4 years in prison before her conviction was overturned. She was eventually acquitted, exonerated, and cleared, but the damage had already been done. Her name became synonymous with the case, while Meredith Kircher, the true victim, was often lost in the spectacle. In March of 2021, I interviewed Amanda in episode 339, where we went step by step through the details of the case, the investigation, and the long road to her freedom. And if you want to deep dive into what happened, I strongly encourage you to listen to that episode. Again, it's episode 339. But today's conversation is different. Today, I'm joined by Amanda and her husband, Christopher Robinson, to talk about their new Hulu documentary, Mouth the Wolf, Amanda Knox Returns to Italy. Directed and filmed by Christopher, the documentary offers unprecedented access as Amanda returns to Italy for the first time since her exoneration, invited back as a keynote speaker at the Italy Innocence Project conference. Now, the cameras follow Amanda as she confronts public scrutiny, personal fear, and the emotional weight of returning to the place where her life forever changed, culminating in a rare face-to-face meeting with the same prosecutor who had sent her to prison more than 15 years ago. This is not just a story about the past. It's about reckoning, memory, and what it means to reclaim your narrative. Here is my interview with Amanda Knox and her husband, Christopher Robinson. I'm so happy to see you. Amanda, I interviewed you, I think it was like 4 years ago, because I became friends with the director of the documentary about you.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's one of these interviews that people still ask me about. And I was surprised afterwards how many people had said, I completely saw that case wrong. I completely saw it wrong. So I'm so grateful when you go back and talk about your story, especially as time goes on, because the longer time goes on, the lens through which we look at this case changes. I think for a period of time, it was about the media. And I'm grateful for this different perspective because I think that it represents the headache that comes with so many international cases and how difficult it is to understand how you're really up against a humongous hill with different cultures and different court systems. And in this case, the prosecutor was of a different generation and he has, a different mindset. So I think the first question I want to ask is, what made you decide to take such a personal journey and to kind of crack yourself open again? Because this is an intensely personal story. And for the both of you,
Yeah, I mean, especially Chris can speak to that aspect of it because it drives him nuts the way that I'm depicted or represented out there. I think it bothers him even more than it bothers me. But to answer the first part of your question, I would say that one of the things that I say at the beginning, I think it's in the beginning of the documentary, is how I'm running towards this really scary thing because it feels like that's the only way to run away is to run straight towards it. Like this feeling of injustice in my life and wanting the truth to be recognized and wanting the people who harmed me and others, wanting them at least, if not to be held accountable, to at least acknowledge what the truth is and what really happened was something that haunted me in the aftermath of everything that happened, like the courtroom drama that everyone knows so well. And one thing that Chris was so smart about in starting to even just film me as I was going about this, because it was not my choice to be filmed while doing this.
It's a separate question of go on that journey, yes or no, is one question. And then do you document it? Do you share it?
Right.
How much is this for you and how much is it for the world?
And for me personally, I felt like a lot of wrongly convicted people and a lot of people who've just been harmed in general, that I felt a deep need for closure, a deep need to feel like I had a hand in my own destiny. And so that was what was driving me, was this really deep need to understand the people who hurt me, to hold them to account while at the same time being able to hold their humanity gently, and how that was a reconstruction of my identity in the aftermath of having that stolen from me. And in a way that the true crime genre doesn't really acknowledge, typically the way you hear these even wrongful conviction stories. It's they go to prison, they get out of prison, they have their first hamburger, the end of story.
Precisely.
And it's that's actually where their story begins, of trying to unravel this injustice and confront it head on, and how difficult that is. And then Chris, watching me sort of grappling with that.
Having panic attacks in the closet,
Oh my God.
Not very long ago, right? I mean, this is a decade plus, 15 years after that original trauma, but it's still haunting her. And when I saw her faced with the prospect of returning to Italy, and I saw how terrifying that was to her, but also how determined she was to do it, I was awestruck. I was inspired. I was personally inspired. I mean, this is the person I've chosen to spend my life with. And on the one hand, I was motivated by the insane distance between who I saw, this beautiful, loving, warm, funny, silly person, and this idea of her out there. But also I saw her doing something that I didn't think I had it in me to do, to approach the people who had harmed her most with an olive branch. And when I saw her doing that, I thought, people need to know about this. This can help people. It can help anyone going through something difficult, because she has a unique way of finding her own empowerment in the midst of a situation where her agency has been stripped away from her for decades.
Well, just to add to that, because you've been witness to this, what would you say is the thing that is most surprising about the long afterlife of injustice?
I mean, it has ripple effects that crop up in such surprising ways. It affects every relationship she has. It's affected her relationship with her mom and her sisters. It affects her relationship with me, and it affects her relationship with our kids. A big part of what this documentary also shows is the journey to motherhood that Amanda went on, and how, I mean, you can speak to this personally, but wanting to figure out what this dark cloud hanging over her life was all about was something that really came into focus when she got pregnant.
I mean, you've been pregnant
Yeah.
5 times. You know how it is. Like you are your body. Like you are the first place that this human being exists. And your body is the fertile ground from which they are coming into existence. And I was afraid that I was poisoned, that I was like poisoned by this dark, traumatic thing that had happened to me and the feeling of irresolution that I had. And so when I was pregnant with my daughter, that was a huge catalyst for the events that unfold in this documentary, was this sense of urgency to find closure and to figure it out and not pass on unconsciously like some really dark, hurt feelings that I still had inside of myself.
And then, our daughter then becomes an important piece of the puzzle of her actually building a relationship with this man. Amanda shared one of the first photos we ever took of our daughter with her prosecutor before we even had told the world that we had had a child. And that act of trust and intimacy is something that helped make a meeting between the two of them possible.
Can I add one more thing to this? I'm going to suggest one more thing that's really surprising that I hope audiences will take away from this documentary is we don't just it's not just what happened to me. We also interview other wrongly convicted people and other people in the innocence movement around this question of accountability in the aftermath of an injustice. And something that I find that's so interesting about our culture is we are very justice-obsessed culture. We are a justice-obsessed culture. And yet there's this whole other drama that is a very dramatic drama that unfolds after, the courtroom, closes its doors. And a person who has had a deep injustice in their life has happened to them. What do they do with it? Like this, and how do we live with it? And do we try to forget that it happened, or do we dedicate our entire lives to trying to fix this problem? This is a really dramatic story that is unfolding in the lives of real people. And it's not just happening to me, right? Other exonerees are all feeling like they're going to have to prove their innocence every day for the rest of their life. And they're wondering, is the person who harmed me, the prosecutors, the detectives, law enforcement, are they ever going to be held accountable? Are they ever going to apologize? And really setting out what this documentary is hoping to do is to reveal to everyone, but especially to those who are really interested in the question of justice, what does it actually take to get it? To wrest justice out of the world for yourself outside of the confines of the justice system. And I think that's going to be a really surprising place of dramatic tension that I think goes overlooked in the whole true crime genre that's out there.
Every year I tell myself, look, you got to get better about meal planning. And every year life gets busy and it falls apart. What finally clicked for me is realizing that meals don't have to look one specific way. They just have to fit your life. That's what Marley Spoon does really well. Marley Spoon adapts with you. Some nights you cook, some nights you heat, and some nights you just do dinner done fast. They've got great options for all of this so that meals fit your schedule and not the other way around. And it still helps me eat well without overthinking it. Everything's chef designed, made with quality ingredients, and balanced enough to feel good about it. And the best part is my oldest, who is 16, is enjoying cooking, especially healthy meals. Marley Spoon gives you over 100 recipes to choose from each week, so you can have comforting classics to fresh, balanced dishes, and all made with quality ingredients. There's something for every mood. Mia made roasted salmon with Mediterranean seasonings with roasted peppers, and I love the pork with Brussels sprouts. Oh, also, Marley Spoon's prepared meals are exactly what they sound like. Convenient, delicious, and on the table in minutes. They are lifesavers when I really just don't feel like cooking. This new year, fast track your way to eating well with Marley Spoon. Head to marleyspoon.com/offer/KCasey for up to 25 free meals. That's right, up to 25 free meals with Marley Spoon. That's marleyspoon.com/offer/KCasey for up to 25 free meals. I kept thinking too about just as an added thing to the afterlife of injustice, is that you're at this point of your life where you're beginning your family. And I think for a lot of mothers, the beauty of having a baby is you're filling in so many holes, right? With this unconditional love, but it also rips new holes open because you're confronted by what you may have lacked. And in your case, there's this moment where you say, I feel a part of me died here.
Yeah.
So what was that like to have your husband and your children and your mom, who had been there so much for you, standing in the parking lot outside of the prison when you're outside of the situation in this new chapter of your life? But it's this incredible joy that you have this family, but you're also mourning who you could have become had that not happened to you.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like, I think one of a really big theme of this documentary is grief.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you're in the middle of the traumatic thing, you're just surviving. Like, in the midst of all of the things that were happening in Italy while I was on trial and all of that, I was surviving. And my mom, and even my mom, was surviving. And then it's only once the dust sort of settles that you realize, oh my God, now I can like see where I've been wounded. And I absolutely felt that way, that like the young person that had gone to Italy to study abroad did not survive the experience. Like a new person emerged, and like I'm lucky that even a new person emerged, because two girls went to Italy to go study abroad and only one of them survived to tell the tale. And even then, like, I'm irrevocably changed and I'm carrying with me. It's so fascinating. Someone was asking me about this yesterday, of how do I, people say like, oh, you seem just like so at peace with everything and so joyful. And I was like, well, but I'm really sad.
Yeah.
Like I'm really sad now in ways that I never, ever was before this happened to me. And I carry with me this deep well of sadness. And I think that because Chris is so close to me and was pulling out the camera in all of those moments, you really get a sense of that, of like the grieving process and how this living body is grappling with what feels like an immense loss and death. And because it's just like, and then I'm grappling with the fact that like, okay, it is a death, but I'm also alive, and like how lucky am I to be alive, how grateful I am to be free, like positioning that against like, but the deep hurt, like there's so much deep hurt that needs to be confronted on a personal level. And then, but of course, because it's like such a huge public drama, like it ends up being a very personal thing that gets played out in public in a big way. So grappling with that.
You may have heard that metaphor for grief, that it doesn't shrink over time, but your world and your life continues to grow and expand around it. And I think that's very true. And you can see that in Amanda's journey of like this deep pain. It's there. It's still there. Now there's these new complicated layers. There's Amanda the mom. There's Amanda the storyteller. There's Amanda the stand-up comedian. Like her life is continuing to evolve and enrich, but there's still this thing that she's carrying, and she's going to continue carrying it. But the way that she carries it and how it shapes her life continues to evolve.
Mm-hmm. The act of forgiveness is complicated. And I kept thinking about how well you were able to, or seemingly able to, compartmentalize confronting Mignini and kind of separating yourself from the situation, and then separating the person he is from the prosecutor. It's like, it seemed pretty complicated, but I was kind of fascinated by the way that you were able to do that. What was the process like doing that?
It was a long process, one that I didn't have a handbook for going into it, right? Like I had a vague idea about how if I approached him as an adversary,
Mm-hmm.
he was going to treat me as an adversary like he always had. And so the question that posed myself was, well, what if I approach him as the opposite? And I'm not a friend, but I can be I can be sympathetic.
You can be an ally.
I could, I mean, it's not even, I didn't approach him as an ally either. I approached him with sympathy, but then I had to ask myself, truly, do I feel sympathetic for this person? Can I acknowledge my hurt and at the same time hold him as a full human being in my mind and imagine his hurt too? And I found myself capable of holding those things at the same time, but it was hard. Like you see it in this documentary, how like I am conflicted and constantly confronted with my pain as I am holding him and his hurt and his need to be recognized for the person he really is. And it's something that I take really seriously. Like to this day, I feel like some people have asked me, how do I feel about him today? And it's like, well, I care about him. I care because I know that I matter to him. He matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take the charge of like holding that relationship and him as a person very seriously. But it was a long process of learning to trust each other and learning to be vulnerable with each other in spite of this history of animosity and pain.
Then I did get kind of frustrated too, thinking if it was reversed and it had been a young college boy and a female prosecutor, would this have happened? Would the young man who turns into a man go to Italy to meet with a female prosecutor? Like the heavy load has been on you. And I felt like that's so emblematic of women throughout the world, that we're the victims, but we have to do the work, the heavy work of forgiveness.
And I think you're right that it's also a generational thing as well, where I think that my generation is more willing to confront the past in the present than I mean, you see it play out even the way that my own family members respond to me and the prospect of going back. And there's like, why? Like, why would you do that? And like,
let him be wrong.
Like let him be wrong on the other side of the world. There's this almost, I think, a kind of defeatist attitude at times, or there's a lack of imagination about what good could possibly come from confronting the past directly in the present. And I think that what I came away with, though, is that even for the skeptics out there, like my prosecutor, he came away incredibly surprised by the positive impact this kind of confrontation could have in his life and in mine. And one that, again, has to be earned. It is hard work, but there is something on the other side of that hard work that is worth fighting for, which is, mutual recognition and acknowledgement of humanity that I think to this day is something that people maybe don't realize the power of. And maybe that's why there aren't more stories like this of people who like are in conflict coming and finding some kind of recognition and resolution. I think that there's a lot of emphasis on conflict and grievance and less on the hard, meticulous, just painstaking work of resolution. Like that is really hard and unglamorous, but at the same time, dramatic and a real like test of our humanity.
I also just want to double down on what you said, Kate, about the unfair burden on Amanda. Like it's not, none of this is fair. You know, like
Yeah.
he didn't meet you halfway. Like if you sat there, no one was going to reach out to you and deliver closure. Like it was on you to figure out how to get that for yourself when the justice system denied it to you, when the people who harmed you were not held accountable, and many of them were promoted, you know, for their work on this case. And so you have a lack of accountability, a lack of apology. And if you were content to just sit there with that, it was never going to arrive at your doorstep.
Right.
And I think what I found so inspiring is Amanda's tenacity to say, no, that's not good enough. And
Mhm.
and no, it's not fair. And I've accepted that it's not fair. So I'm going to go to the ends of the earth to make this happen. And if that means that I have to put aside my feelings of grievance and hurt in order to find the will to be kind to someone who does not deserve it from me, I'm going to do that because that's how I'm going to find my power. And that's what I found so inspiring. And what led me to want to document this is that when I saw her facing down the prospect of this journey, I could see how terrifying it was, but also how she was finding her own strength in this. She was finding real power and agency over a story and a situation that had taken over her life. She was finally doing something. And everything leading up to that is a story of things other people did to Meredith, what Rudy Gaudet did to Meredith, what the prosecutor did to Amanda, what the media did to Amanda. None of that was about what Amanda did. This is finally about Amanda doing something that she can put her name and her identity behind and say, this is me.
Well, and I think you're right. Like, I think the thing that I just was so dissatisfied with was the lack of justice. Like there was just a complete lack of justice. And I was tired of waiting around for other people to do their jobs and do justice. So I was just like, well, if you want it done right, do it yourself, I guess. Like, you know?
Yeah. The other thing I kept really thinking of by the end of it was, I think this is a much bigger story than you realize. And I think that this moment in time and this specific story should be almost like a time capsule. Because in this case, you have a prosecutor who may be living in another part of the country, but I feel like it's, again, emblematic of the rest of the world, and especially in the time that we live, where you have somebody who stuck to a narrow view and would not budge, because I think by doing so, he's going to admit all the amount of time, all the years of work, his belief system, that he was wrong. And you were really giving him the grace and allowing him the opportunity to in some way admit that. And I think in a small way, he was, but again, he's the product of his generation, his culture, his faith, etc. But it's just sitting there, right there. He's on the edge of it. Like, just say, I have a different belief system now. I was wrong. And everyone else in the world is experiencing that in some way, whether it's politics or in law, in business, in interpersonal relationships, that people people have a hard time admitting that they're wrong because they look at the amount of time, the work, the energy they put into a belief system or a belief. The act of forgiveness that you displayed in this moment of time and in your life is really awe-inspiring. And I think this is much bigger than just your own story. And I hope you see that, know that, and feel that.
I do feel that. And I'm really grateful that you recognized what it took for Mignini, right? Like, we can talk about like how hard it was for me, and it was hard. It's patently, you will see it is hard.
Yeah.
But like, also, I put Giuliano Mignini in a very difficult position that he did not ask for. And he didn't run away from it, right? Like, in meeting with me, he had to be confronted, and he willingly was putting himself in a place to be confronted. And like, I think part of my ability to to forgive and to hold him gently was acknowledging all that it would take for him to really turn around and say, I have a different view. Like to really confront his own, what he had invested so much of himself into, this belief.
Yep.
What it would take, like what it really takes. Like it is no small thing to turn around and confront what he is, and what any of us are having to confront when new information reveals that the path that we have been on has actually been a harmful one.
Correct.
When we are the heroes of our own story, like, oh my God.
He has to reshape his whole identity, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's no small thing that I was putting him in a position for. And you know what? Like, he didn't just run away.
The moment when your daughter runs up that hill and you're going, amore, amore, and he sees, I thought, that's the moment. He had total clarity, but he's stuck in his time. And he's terrified of admitting that he spent all those years going down the wrong path. But I'm like, you don't have to say it. I know it. It was just the way that he looked. I felt that.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I love that you've got empathetic vibes. Like that's also something for me that I have found like a deep sense of peace from. Is it's not just what he says, it's how he says what he says, and also what he's doing when he's not saying things. Like there is communication happening on many, many levels. And even he himself has said things to me like, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
How can I say?
Even telling you about the movie, and he's like, just watch it, you'll understand. And you're like, what? Huh?
Yeah. And then you're just like so mad because you're like, why can't you just say something
just spit
explicitly?
it out. He can't. He's such a product of his generation and his culture.
But I think you're right, Kate, that it's a bigger story. And I think that's something that we recognized intuitively, that we're in such a divided time. And there's, every year at Thanksgiving for families across America, it's like, am I going to be able to talk to my uncle? And that level, that baseline level of like, I feel like I'm surrounded by unbridgeable chasms.
And the dread and anxiety.
Exactly.
I talk to these people who believe this different thing than me. And I was watching Amanda approach the most intense personal version of that possible. Like this guy doesn't just have a different political belief, but he's the architect of a whole set of lies about you that sent you to prison wrongfully. Yep. How do you approach that guy and build a bridge? And if Amanda can build a bridge to that guy, then you can have Thanksgiving dinner with your uncle who is on the opposite end of the political spectrum, right? Like that was inspiring to me, and I saw it as a model of how we can approach difficult relationships in our lives.
Mm-hmm. I truly believe that.
It personally helped me. It gave me the courage watching her do that to approach some situations where I had a falling out with someone and say, you know what? Yep. If she can sit down with her prosecutor, I can go talk to my friend and get over this falling out we had. And I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't witnessing, if she didn't show me how to do it, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I have over 1,500 episodes. I've interviewed investigators, victims, the whole gamut. I thought this was profoundly moving. I thought this was very well done. And I'm so grateful. I highly recommend it. And this is going to stay with me for a long time, as my interview did with you many years ago. So
thank you, Kate.
I'm so happy to see you in your moment now with your family. And you know what? I was really happy to see your mom on camera too, because for me, watching that case, especially now that I've gotten older and having kids myself, I look through a different lens too of what it must have been like for your mother to have experienced that. And my God, standing on the hill with him too.
Yep. And I put my mom through it. And like as a mom now, I can appreciate, like her point of view is so crucial to this documentary because Like, she is the most loving and supportive mother you could ever hope for. And she also is the counterbalance. Like, she's the one who's challenging me and saying, like, I believe in you, Amanda, but I don't believe in this choice, and like, and understandably so. And I have to put myself in her shoes now as a mother and think, if this had happened to my daughter, would I be as, like, I feel like I would be in her exact same position. And so I think that interplay between us, we are both speaking truths, even though they are in conflict with each other, And
everyone's at a different place on their journey toward closure and healing and forgiveness. And Amanda's mom, I love her mom. She's at a different place on that journey. And she's not at the place where she wants to walk into a room and sit down with the man who stole her daughter away and locked her in a cell.
And stole from her life.
Yeah, totally. And yet, when Amanda said, I want to go back to Italy and I want to meet this guy, she didn't say no. She said, I'm not letting you go back to Italy without me.
Yeah.
And so we love her for that too. Like, she was an important moral support there on that journey.
Yeah.
Tell everybody where they can follow you and listen to your podcast and your books, like everything that you're working on.
Great. Well, you can find out anything about me at amandaknox.com. I'm on Instagram at amamanox, on Blue Sky at amandaknox.com, and on X at
Amanda Knox.
At Amanda Knox.
You can listen to Amanda's podcast, Hard Knocks, also available through her Substack.
Yep.
And Mouth of the Wolf is streaming on Hulu starting January 26th. And yeah.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my wonderful guests, Amanda and Christopher, and remind you to make sure that you click subscribe. Please leave a 5-star review. Please join the Facebook group Reality Life with Kate Casey. You can get bonus episodes on Apple Podcast and on Patreon at patreon.com/Kate Casey. Also, my What to Watch list, which I put out every week on what to watch in unscripted TV, which in many cases includes true crime documentaries. You can find it at katecasey.substack.com. Also, make sure that you follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at @KateCaseyCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at @KateCasey. Check back tomorrow for an all-new episode.
Finding a hoodie that lasts through the season can be tough. The American Giant Classic Full Zip Hoodie is made to last a lifetime, so you can count on it year after year. Every American Giant piece is made in America and designed to last. No exceptions. The result is durable clothing that becomes part of your life. Snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life. The American Giant Classic Full Zip. Save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use Staple 20 at checkout.